we left off. Where do I want you? Oh, I can do that. That works for me. Okay, so this is where we left off. We talked about synovial joints and their 6 features. All the keys and everything will be posted. So if you don't get to write it or whatever, this is literally the key that's going to be posted. So don't worry about that. So these are our 6 features, right? Synovial joints are really special because they have lots of movement and they have nerves and they have special fluid and they have ligaments and all this stuff. They comprise most of your limbs, right? So your elbows and your shoulders and your hips and your knees and stuff like that give us the range of movement that is characteristic of our limbs. So the other features, so these are things about synovial joints. So we're going to talk about some really specific things that happen to be in synovial joints, like fat pads, articular discs, the bags of synovial fluid, right? Those act as a lubricating or like a ball bearing. It's almost like WD-40 for your body, right? When your door's really squeaky, you put some WD-40 on it, right? That's what our synovial fluid does here. We also have bursa, which we talked about last session, which are pretty much these little, I want to say like water balloons. They're kind of like water balloons that sit in your joints that allow us to pinch and move bones around, that allow us to reduce inflammation, and it isn't so painful because we're doing a lot of pinching and moving of lots of different things in there. So it's important we have kind of like a shock absorber, right? And then we also have tendon sheets, which we'll talk about too. I'm going to show you a picture of all this in a second. So I said this way, I said the other way. Okay, that's not what I want. Okay, so this is, oh, someone has a kitty cat.
Oh, my cat is going through heat, and so she's like meowing, and it's really bad.
Oh, that is super funny. Okay, so this is a synovial joint, right? You see these fat pads right in here. So this is your knee, right? Fat pads, the articular cartilage, which pretty much, I said last time, which I like, is like it laminates the end of the bones, right? So if you were to rub a bone up against something, and then you were to laminate it, it would run much smoother. So those are these little bursa, right, which protect between the tendons, right, and the bone. There are a lot of people that just like to hang out in the engineering building. It's literally quarantine. Like, go home and hang out at home if you want to infect everyone, but don't hang out here. Sorry. Oh, it makes me so mad. Okay, so then these are your synovial membranes, and we'll fill these with that synovial fluid, right? So these are really characteristic of your synovial joints, right? Like your fibrous joints, like in your skull, right, don't have any of this stuff. There's a lot more moving parts in these joints. So I'll move you back up. Okay, so our fat pads, right, their function is to cushion, right? They're a fibrous capsule layer between the synovial membrane or joint, right? So just like fat usually, so when we talked about fat and we learned about like proteins and all that jazz, we learned that fats store nutrients, but they're also for cushioning and insulation. Right, so fat has a lot of good uses. I know it gets like a bad rap, right? Like, but you actually need fat in your body. That's what they talk about. It's like the female triad. Especially for people who are anorexic, when they lose all their fat in their body, they're not able to do specific things that their body needs to do, like use lipid hormones and have these fat cushioning pads on their joints. Fat's really important in your body. Okay, so then we have these articular discs, right? They're also known as the meniscus or the menisci, right? You have those in your knee. You know, you have your ACL, your LCL, right? Your MCL. Right, these improve the fit of the bone ends. It's almost like filling in the gaps, right, so that they fit really well together. And it stabilizes your joint and reduces wear and tear, which is why as you get older, you wear down a lot of that articular discs, and which is why people have a lot of joint pain as they get older, or overuse pain for injuries. Okay, we also have bursa. These reduce the friction where anything can rub together, right? If you put, I don't want to say bones. If you put 2 sticks together, but you put a water balloon in between them and then you're rubbing them together, they're going to create a lot less friction because it's not stick on stick, right? They have to go through that water balloon piece. And so that will reduce your inflammation. Okay, so your tendon sheets, they're actually these elongated bursa. So they pretty much wrap around your tendon, right? They're bursa that wrap around tendons to create less friction, because your tendons move a lot because they're connected with your bones, right? And so so when we're moving all this, you're moving muscle, you're moving tendon, you're moving ligaments, right? So you want to make sure that there's stuff that's wrapped around it to protect it. Okay, questions, feelings, hopes, dreams? Nothing, we're all very happy. Good, good, cool. Okay, so now we're going to talk about joint stability. Okay, so joint stability depends on our articular surface, our ligaments and locations, and then the tone of each muscle. Okay, so I'm just going to give you all of this and we're just going to talk about it. So for your articular surface, this isn't like a super important, right? But the amount of surface and the amount of articular cartilage that is on a joint allows it to be more or less stable, right? So your shallow, less stable, right? Or your ball and socket joints, right? Like your knee or your hip or your, right, if this is your scapula and this is your humerus, right? Those ball and socket joints have a lot more surface area, so that articular cartilage does more good, right? Because we're moving a lot more in there. Whereas if we're talking about a wrist, right, we're not moving as much. There's not as much going on here. So the articular surface doesn't contribute a lot. Okay, so your ligament number and location. So the number and location, so the more ligaments, the stronger the joint. Okay, right, so if you're thinking about your knee or your shoulder, those are covered in ligaments, right? They're wrapped and covered in ligaments because there's lots of different ways that you're moving that joint, and so that needs to be really strong, right? It's pretty hard to, did I get a thing? It's pretty hard to, sorry, thank you for answering questions. It's pretty hard to dislocate your hip or your shoulder, and so you know when people do that, it's really painful to put back in, right? Because it's a pretty stable joint. So this is a limited role. It really depends. So if we have more ligaments, it's going to be a higher role, but if we have less, then it's going to be less, right? It's really dependent on how much we have. All right, so then your muscle tone is actually your major role. This functions in keeping the joint taut, right, and put together. Right, this is most important for your shoulder, your knee, and the arch of your foot. So that's why people that have better muscle tone end up having more stable joints, because the muscles encapsulate the joints on purpose. It's all designed, right? But the muscles, right, like your deltoid is up here, it is over the top, your triceps is in the back, your biceps is in the front, right? So you were totally encapsulating this joint so that the more muscle we have, the more protected all of that is and the more tightly packed it is. Hold on one second. Let's all go on a fun trip with Natalie because people are confused about how to get in the session. Okay, I have a question while I'm doing this. Does it bother y'all when I send out the link to get back in this every time? Because I send it out all the time. And so your muscle tone is really, really important in your joint stability, right? So, and a lot of people that are elderly, other than the other multiple factors. Hello, Daniel. If you'll throw me your UIN in the private chat, that would be awesome. Why is this not going away? Everyone watching me trying to get it to go away. Really? Okay. So Daniel, we're still in session 12 on the website. We're still doing that joints bit, even though this is technically session 13. So elderly people, there's lots of other factors, right? But if they have less muscle tone, then there's less stability in that joint, okay? Which is why it's much easier for them to hurt a hip or shoulder, right? Which is a lot more common in them, but it's less common in, young adults. Okay, so injuries. So we have cartilage tears, right? This is due to compression or shear stress, right? We repair this with arthroscopic surgery, right? Which means we take a camera and we go in there and we fix. Arthro has to do with joints, so we fix that.
Don't mind my mom in the background either.
It's okay. Have y'all seen that video on, I don't even know what it's on. I don't know where it originated, but it was like some guys in a Zoom session and his mom is like being really loud and he like not muted. He like yells at his mom and he's like, I'm in a session. And then he like very calmly goes back to the professor and he's like, so you were saying? And then he does it like 4 times and he's like not appropriate at all. And this teacher's like, what am I supposed to do?
My mom is so loud, and I'm not that like her at all.
That's so funny.
Like she just yells.
Oh yeah, my parents do that. Okay, so then we have sprains, right? So you've heard of strains and sprains. So this is a sprain, right? Your reinforcing ligaments, right, are stretched or torn. The partial tears repair really slowly. Why would a partial tear repair really slowly on a ligament? Why do ligaments heal slower than other things?
Is it because they're not vascularized? Or
yes. Boom, roasted. Yes. So vascularized meaning they don't have direct blood flow, and so they're not going to get their nutrients right as fast. So if you can't remember that, think about how if you were to order something from Amazon and you live in Dallas, you'd probably get it way, way faster than if you live in Stephenville. Because if you order something from Amazon in Dallas, it's going to go from one state to the next, right? We're going to hop big city to big city, right? But if we're in Stephenville, we have to go big city, lots of little cities to get to our very, very small, far away thing, right? Because we're not vascularized, okay? Oh, it has poor vascularization on there, but I'm going to give Marley points anyway. Okay, so then we have dislocation. It's also called a luxation, which is where we're actually forced out of alignment. Not great, not a good day. And then lastly, we have subluxation, which is a partial dislocation of a joint. Anyway, okay, so other injuries, right? So we have cartilage tear, sprain, dislocation, subluxation. These are just like, it's like a little summary list. And then we also have inflammatory or degenerative injuries like bursitis, tendonitis, and arthritis. So itis, I-T-I-S, literally means inflammation. So anything that's got itis on the end of it means we're inflaming something. And then the prefix is what is being inflamed. So bursitis is when your bursa become inflamed. Tendonitis is when your tendons become inflamed, and arthritis is when the joint as a whole becomes inflamed. Okay, so bursitis, right, is inflammation of a bursa, right? This is usually caused by a blow or friction. A lot of the time, Christian talked about this last session, if you've ever seen anyone with like a big bubble in their elbow or their knee or something, when they hit and they burst open a bursa, literally. And so the body doesn't understand that. And so it continues to try and refill it with synovial fluid. So it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And actually a lot of the time, what your athletic trainer will tell you to do is to go back out to practice and hit it again. Because once you hit it again, your body will understand that it's ruptured and it will stop filling it and it'll actually start to rebuild it. Kinese tidbits. Very cool. All right, so tendonitis, right, is the inflammation of your tendon sheets, right? This is by overuse if you've ever played a sport, right, where you're doing a lot of things with one hand, right, especially like volleyball, or you will know that your tendons hurt, right? Any kind of sport, any kind of overuse injury. Right, arthritis, okay, so there are lots of kinds of arthritis. They like to talk about this. So this is when we have pain, stiffness, and swelling. Usually this is associated with your grandparents will have it. you'll understand, right? They have problem with their hands or things like that. So this can be from bacteria, okay? And then they can use antibiotics to treat this. That's what this says. That's a C. You may see, I'm very sorry. This says bacteria, and we can use antibiotics to treat this. So we have chronic forms. So those are acute forms. What does acute mean?
Short.
Minor.
Yeah, short, minor. It comes up and it happens and then it goes away, right? Where chronic is long term, right? It may come in and out, but it's for a long time, right? This is osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and gouty arthritis. They like to, they usually, if I remember correctly, on my exam, they would give me an example of a patient or someone, and they would ask me what kind of arthritis they had, because there's really defining factors between these. Okay, so those are the 3 times of arthritis again. All right, so osteoarthritis is also known as OA, right? This is the most common kind of arthritis, right? Most people have osteoarthritis. This is a degenerative, irreversible wear and tear, right? As you get into your 80s and your 90s, right? You've used this up, and you are, right, you're wearing thin on your articular surfaces or on your cartilage, and so you're going to have pain. Okay. So a lot of this can be caused by they're wearing it down. The cartilage is broken down faster than it's built up. Okay. So we're wearing it down and we're wearing it down and we're wearing it down. I mean, we're just not building as fast a lot of the time, especially because when you're older, right, your cells move slower, right? Because they're older. I mean, technically not. You get new cells every day, but right, your metabolism is slower. Let's do that. That's better. Okay, this is usually in men, or this is usually in women, right? And it's usually over the age of 85. Okay. How we doing? Is everyone chilling? Okay, so then our next kind is rheumatoid arthritis, right? This is a chronic form, right? So it happens for a long time. It's caused by an autoimmune disease, and sometimes we don't actually know why it's caused, right? This comes with a lot of pain and a lot of inflammation. If you've ever seen anyone, oh, actually, I'll show you a picture. You ever seen those pictures of, actually, it was in your PowerPoint, of people that have really, really swollen, kind of like closed, crepitous looking hands, right? A lot of the time that's rheumatoid arthritis. You see like big bulbs around the joints and the fingers. Okay, this arises when you're 40 or 50, and this usually occurs in women, right? Women have a lot of times, they have a lot of bone issues, right? Because they're that postmenopausal estrogen loss has a lot to do with our bones and our upkeep of things like that.
What was the cause on osteoarthritis?
Osteoarthritis is the cartilage is broken down faster than it's built.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, you do look confused. Okay. All right, and then gouty arthritis is your different one. This one, they like to ask about this one because this one is different, right? So this one is from a deposit of uric acid crystals in the joint. It literally deposits excess uric acid crystals in your joint, which is like, ouch. This is usually in men, right? So that's why it's different. This one is usually in men. And it is usually in the hallux, right, is the joint, and it's the big toe. It's the weirdest thing. It's weird, right?
Why the big toe?
Don't know. I asked that. They do not know. But it's usually in the big toe.
That's weird.
Is it because maybe there's just a lot of pressure being put on the toe?
Maybe, but I feel like male and female pressures is probably not going to be so different based on your, your body proportions. But
yeah, I was about to say, I think it's like the articulation of the joints and everything in men compared to women.
It could be, for sure. I will look it up because I have been wondering. I'd like to know why. Okay, so now, do we have any questions before we go on to muscles? Let me see if I had any pictures that I was going to show you. So that is, this is so irritating. Okay, there's your joint, right? Your synovial joint. No, no. Okay, so this is another pretty good picture of your synovial joints, right? Because this is the synovial fluid, right? And then we have this articular cartilage and the synovial capsule. Does he have anything else that I wanted to show you? No. Okay, good. All right, let's do muscles then. Put you back up here. Put you back up here. Scoliosis. Christian, I don't know. I just tell you what the notes tell me to tell you. Scoliosis is not usually, but it's not like a bone issue. I think that's like a genetic issue, and you are, it's like a malformation, right? So that is my tip for that. All right, so your muscular system, right? You all know that we have 3 types of muscle. We have skeletal, cardiac, and smooth muscle. All right, and you've seen a lot of these in the lab. Seen a lot of these in the lab, so you kind of know what they look like. They usually ask about what the muscle looks like, right? So your skeletal muscle, your tissue is your bones and your skin, right? It's striped. It's the longest. It's your voluntary one, and it tires easily, right? And I feel like you'd be like, well, maybe it doesn't tire easily. Well, I mean, if you go hard at the gym for like an hour, you're tired and your muscles are tired, right? Whereas your heart pumps your whole life, and it doesn't take any breaks unless it does, which is bad, right? It usually doesn't take any breaks, okay? Your cardiac muscle is only found in your heart. It's striated and involuntary, right? And your contraction is involuntary and usually a steady state. And you'll learn later, I think in ANP2, when you talk about the cardiac system, is that your heart rate is controlled by your pacemaker in your heart, which is called the SA node. It sits in your, I think it's in your left atrium, maybe right atrium. Left atrium. Okay, so then your smooth muscle, right? These are hollow organs like your stomach that's not striated. It's involuntary, and it occurs without NS, means without nervous system stimulation, right? The nervous system doesn't have to tell your smooth muscle to do its job. It knows what its job is. It's like self-motivated. Okay, so your characteristics of muscle is that it's excitable, right? As in we can stimulate it, okay? It's contractible, meaning we can shorten it to produce a contraction. It's extensible, which means it can also be stretched. And it's elastic, right? Like a hair tie most of the time until they die, is it comes back to its normal shape after it's been used, right? So it comes back to a normal shape and length. Okay. Okay, so excitable meaning responsive, contractible meaning shortening, extensible meaning it can be stretched, and elastic meaning it has recoil that it comes back. Am I going too fast? Cool. Okay, so the functions of your skeletal system, or your muscular system, I guess, okay, is to produce movement, right? All locomotion and manipulation come from the skeletal muscle. If we didn't have it, it wouldn't be able to move, even if we have our bones, even if we have our nerves. If there's nothing to excite, there is no movement. Okay, it maintains posture, right? You don't notice when you're sitting up, but there's a lot of muscle twitching going on that maintains your posture and maintains that isotonic contraction. And then it's to stabilize joints, right? We talked about earlier that muscle tone is a major factor in joint stability, okay? And then it generates heat as it contracts. So y'all can tell when you're working out and you get that first wave of like, all right, I'm awake, my muscles are ready, and I'm good, right? You're hot, you're sweating, right? Because your muscles are using energy and they're burning energy, which is breaking bonds, right? We're breaking bonds, so we're releasing the energy that's within those bonds. Questions, feelings, upstream? Okay. So I did talk about this last time, but if you didn't watch the video or you weren't here last time, I don't think you're going to be able to go back during your exam. I think it's going to be like I finished this question, move forward, and I'm not going to be able to go back. And I think he's going to give you like a minute and a half a question. So for that, make sure that you are using your resources, whatever makes you happy, and that you do have a pretty good grip on the material before you take an exam. Just because I think he's going to make it as real testing conditions as he can.
So just like the lab exam.
Maybe, I don't know what that looked like, but I assume that probably, so it's probably not going to be fill in the blank though. I'm assuming it's going to be multiple choice. I'm thinking your lab exam was fill in the blank?
Yeah, it was, but we had a minute per question.
Okay, yeah, but then I would say that other than that, I would say multiple choice.
Yeah.
But a lot of the time you can eliminate 2 or 3 on multiple choice, and so then you're pretty well off there. Okay. So your skeletal muscle, right, is an organ made up of different tissues, and it has 3 specific features, right? It's nerve and blood supply, its connective tissue sheaths, and its attachments. Okay, so for our nerve and blood supply, just make sure, okay, for our nerve and blood supply, each muscle has a nerve and a blood supply. I don't know why that's not written. I hate myself. Okay. Haha. Let me write it in there. I'm not sure why it's not there. So odd. Each muscle has a vein, an artery, and a nerve. Okay. So it has a way to take out the carbon dioxide or whatever waste, a way to get in new stuff, and a nerve to use that neural stimulation to tell it when to contract, right? Okay. Right, which is what I just said. So how the oxygen is being used and how the contraction is being produced. Okay, it has a connective tissue sheath, right, which covers the muscle fiber and the muscle itself. It allows it to support and reinforce the whole muscle, right? So pretty much anytime you have an organ or anything, you're going to have some kind of connective tissue or some kind of wrapping on it, right? We have them in bones, we have them in muscles, we have them in your stomach, everywhere, right? So we have a connective tissue sheath that supports and reinforces, and it sheaths the external to the internal, right? So we have one on every level. So I'm going to show you this. Where's my, okay, so we have an epimysium, a paramysium, and an endomysium, okay? Your epimysium is your most external. It's that dense, irregular connective tissue that surrounds the outside of the muscle. So I'm going to talk through these, and then I'll go show you I'll show you the thing about them, like a little picture. Okay. So epi means what?
Outside?
Yeah, for sure. So if you can remember that epi means outside and mysium looks like muscle, right? So it's on the outside of the muscle, okay? Your paramecium is a fibrous connective tissue that surrounds a fascicle. So that's your next smallest thing, which is a group of muscle fibers. And I think I did put on the website my like little study guide that I like hand wrote when I took this class, and I drew out these muscle groups and their like and their things and their connective tissue sheets. It's like very crudely written or drawn, but you know. And then we have the endomysium, which is a fine areolar connective tissue which surrounds each individual fiber or myofibril. Heather, are you good? Are you okay? Are you dying?
I'm doing great. I'm sorry.
Okay, just checking. All right, so let me show you these. So this is your whole muscle, right? So this is what, if it's this your biggest thing, which layer is this?
Your epi
Epimysium, right? And then your next,
would be your peri,
and then,
endo.
Endo.
right. So which of these is a fascicle?
Peri.
So let me show
The
you.
middle one.
Yes.
Yeah,
So do what I say. Okay, so this is a fascicle, right? This is the littlest one is a myofibril, right? Which ends up dividing into sarcomeres, okay? So this is, it doesn't like me. Doesn't like me. I guess I had it at like the perfect spot. Oh, right. I'm sorry. Epi, peri, endo. Yeah? We feel good about that? Okay. All right, let's go back and then we'll talk about the little individual pieces in a minute. Okay, so then our last thing is that we have attachments, right? The muscles span joints and they attach to bone. So there's no purpose of a muscle if it doesn't have an attachment, if it doesn't have something it gets to move. Okay, so based on that, we have an insertion and an origin. Okay, so people have a really hard time learning these. So your origin is your immovable end, right? And your insertion is the movable end, okay? So how I remember these is I remember that where you originate, where you were born, where you originate from, right? Wherever, you don't get to pick that. That's an immovable or unchangeable fact about you. That's just something that was told to you when you were born, okay? So I remember that my origin is immovable, okay? And then my insertion, which is where I get to pick that my life goes or wherever I move or go to college or whatever, is movable, is something that I get to control and I can change. So that's how I remember the difference. Does that help anyone? Okay. And if you remember one of them, then you know the other one. And I feel like origin is like really easy to remember, or like where you insert yourself, right? Where you put yourself, you get to pick that. That's changeable. Actually, we get so lucky because the anatomy labs in other schools that I've heard of, they have to learn every origin, insertion, and attachment for every muscle. It's crazy. And they have to learn it's an adductor, a flexor, an extensor. It's crazy. It's a craziness. So, okay, so we can attach directly or indirectly. So if we're directly, we're attaching fleshy, right? So the epimysium is fused to the periosteum of the bone, right? That periosteum is that outer, the outer covering of the bone, right? Or to the perichondrium of cartilage. So if we're attaching directly, we either attach to the membrane outside the bone or the membrane outside cartilage. Questions, comments, and concerns? No. Okay, cool. Okay, so then indirectly, the connective tissue wraps around, right? It's almost like a tendon, right? Or a sheet like aponeurosis, okay? Right, so that's an indirect attachment. Right, so instead of attaching directly to something, we wrap around it, right? Okay, so then we're going to do some muscle fiber anatomy. So a fiber is a muscle cell, okay? I'll show you all. And then a muscle fiber is long, cylindrical, and has lots of nuclei. So we learned that muscle tissue has lots of nuclei, right? So a muscle fiber will also have a lot of nuclei. Okay. So then we have some organelles, right, that are specific, right? We have a sarcolemma, a sarcoplasm, a glycosome, and myoglobin, okay? So a sarcolemma is your muscle fiber's plasma membrane. So just like the cell's plasma membrane, this is just for your muscle fiber, okay? It makes sure that things go in and out correctly and that our homeostasis is maintained and then our electrical impulses are on the right side, right? So our plasma membrane is the sarcolemma. And he will use these terms on the test. So if you don't know what they are and he uses it as a descriptor, that might not be good for you. So I would make sure you know these terms because he's going to use them really frequently. Okay, your sarcoplasm, right, has plasm in it. So that's your cytoplasm in the muscle fiber. Your glycosome is your glycogen storage because we're doing a lot of usually we do a lot of aerobic movement, right? Which means we use oxygen and we need fuel, and our fuel is glycogen. Okay, so glyco and glyco, so glycosomes are glycogen storage. And then our myoglobin sounds like hemoglobin, right? But this is just myoglobin, which is oxygen storage in the muscle. Right, so hemoglobin stores oxygen in the blood, right? Hemo means blood, myo means muscle. So myoglobin is oxygen storage in the muscle. Does that make sense? Good. Okay. Do you have any questions about this? Oh.
So we should just know like what you said, like know what fiber is, obviously, like, and then like the sacrolemma, like you want us to know like what that means, like we just need to know what that means.
Right, so if he used that in the sentence, right, and that wasn't like the tested question is what is a sarcolemma, if he said in the sarcolemma blah blah blah, for you to be able to know what that term is and use it as in a sentence. So if he used it, you could use that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right, so then we have some modified organelles, okay, like a myofibril, which is a rod-like densely packed thing, and it hits 80% of our cell volume. So we'll look at these myofibrils in a minute. Right, we have thousands and thousands of myofibrils. Okay, they're striated, right? They have striates that form series of light and dark bands along each myofibril. Okay, so I'm gonna show this to you before we do the packet piece because I just think it's so much easier to do. Why we like this computer? Okay. Okay, so this whole thing, the big part of this is not very big, right? This is that muscle fiber, an individual muscle fiber, and this little piece is a myofibril. Okay, so we're like big muscle fascicle thing, like way down. We're way down at the very end. Okay, so in between these little zigzags on either side, these are the Z lines, right? They kind of look like Z's, right? Those are our Z lines. Those are the end, those mark the ends of a sarcomere, right? So from Z line to Z line is a sarcomere. Yeah, cool. Please tell me if you get lost at any moment of this, because this is really important and the structures are kind of a mess. Okay, right, so that makes the sarcomere. Okay, so then we have myosin and actin, which are our thin and thick filaments, right? Your myosin filament is in the middle, M and M. Myosin is in the middle and it's thick, okay? And then your actin filaments are these purple ones, and they're the thin filaments. And so then if you go down here, okay, we're looking at the A band and the I band, okay? The A band has actin and myosin in it, okay? But the I band, because it's looking at, so this A band is looking at right here. These are the same thing. It's just a different way to look at it. And then this I band is only the actin because it's made up of that purple piece, right, which is the actin filament. Oh, that's what I did. Okay, how do we feel about all of that? We're gonna talk about it a lot, but how do we feel about that initially? Thank you for the thumbs up. Cool. Okay, so remember we talked about the sarcoplasmic. Oh, did we talk about the sarcoplasmic reticulum yet? We have not done that? No, I don't think we have. No, we have not. Ignore me. Okay. So your A band, right? Remember that's made of actin and myosin. It's a dark region. So it's dark because it has a lot of filaments in it because it has actin and myosin. So I like to do, it is, right? A and A, okay, the dark band and the A band, right? Because it has actin and myosin in it, right? The M line is in the middle. I'll show you this in a second. Okay, A band, I band is the lighter region, right? And then we learn that Z disc is that end of the sarcomere. It looks like a little like ladder at the end. I think everyone might be frozen. Hold on. Oh, I have Christian's not frozen, Zach's not frozen, Heather's back. Oh, we're back. We're back. It was frozen. So this is how I remember I band and A band, right? Because the I band is just actin and the A band is actin and myosin. So there's a little thing at the bottom down here, right, that we're gonna do. Oh, okay. Honestly, I would draw that out like 5 times. I would draw it out like 5 times and I would be like, where are my pieces? What is going on? Okay, so this is like a really, really simplified version of what I just showed you. Okay, because this is the Z line. It's so mad at me. Yeah, it's so mad at me. Okay, the M line is this piece where there's only myosin in it and there's no actin in it. Okay, the H zone is just the gap between the actin, right? So it's from here to here. Figure it out, computer. Here to here. It's mad at me, okay? Right, I band is just actin, and then A band has actin and myosin in it. Okay, and then your sarcomere is your smallest contractile unit. It's your functional unit. right? It's the Z line to Z line. They're going to ask you what the smallest contractile unit is, and you're not going to say a muscle fiber, right? Or a myofiber or anything like that. You're going to say sarcomere. They love to ask that question. It kills people all the time. Sarcomere is your smallest contractile unit. Do not be tricked. Okay, let's see what.
So the M line's right in the middle.
M line is right in the middle. It's where there's just myosin.
Okay.
Okay, and then. Okay. Oh dear. Right. So this M line right here is just in the middle. Okay. The H zone is literally the gap between where it's like actin to actin. It's like the end of the actins. Okay. So
Okay.
that is actin. I band is just actin. Okay. A band is both. It's actin and myosin because it's the dark region because it's got more fiber in it. Okay. And then that Z line is the end of a sarcomere, right? So here's, if we're looking at this myofibril, right? So from this little Z to this little Z is a sarcomere. So this little whole piece is a sarcomere, and then this other whole piece is a sarcomere, and it will shorten. Let's just do that really quick. That might, we don't have to like watch because we're gonna learn about how the heck it does this. Shut it, lady. Okay, don't care, not for right now. Ah, here we are. So this video is in the playlist. It's this one right here. Watch it like 40 times. Like watch it like 40 times because everything that this, and she's really annoying, but everything she tells you is going to be on your test. And it's really, really hard to understand this without watching it because it's like, we're literally grabbing fibers and it's grabbing this other thing that does this. Like it, just watch the whole video. It's like 4 minutes. It'll save your lives. Okay. So, right, we have that big one. We have skeletal muscle, right? Paramecium. And then we have a muscle fiber or a fascicle. And that's, what did I say? Did I say para? I say that every time. Epimecium, paramecium, endomecium, right? And then these little white bits, right, in there, those are myofibrils. And in those, making up those are sarcomeres. I know that's like a lot. And you're like, what the heck are you talking about? Okay. So then just play for a second. Okay, so, right, so this is the nerve that connects to this muscle fiber. And we're gonna learn about all of this jazz, unfortunately, later. Okay, so now we're going into those little white pieces that were on the end, right? It's gonna shoot one out. Cool. This is a sarcomere, yeah? From that Z line to Z line, okay? This, it's gonna go in closer. Oh, will it do that for you? Hold on. Okay, so the thick filament is myosin, right? And the thin filament is actin. Okay, so it's gonna show you it contracting. We're gonna learn how it contracts later, but I just kind of want you to watch how the sarcomere shortens. Okay, none of the fibers in there shorten, the sarcomere just pulls closer. So this M line, right, we talked about the M line and the H zone that are just the middle, is just gonna get less. The fibers are the same length always, right? They just end up overlapping more or less. Does that make sense? Okay, cool, hold on. So it's gonna shorten, watch. Okay. That's when the muscle shortens. So this M line or the myosin and the actin are the same length. Do you just see how there's less of an overlap between the middle? They will always ask you if the fibers shorten, and the answer is no, just the sarcomere shortens. Nothing gets shorter except for the distance between the Z lines, okay? So no fibers end up shortening. They just overlap more. Okay, so then it's shortening and relaxing. Okay. Right, so that's myosin. We're going to talk about later that it's got that this little circle is a globular head, right? And then this actin that links up to the Z line is more of a thin filament, okay? Right, the M line is that middle portion. Right, the Z line is the ending. They're going to give us any more. Oh, it's just going to contract. Okay, hold on. So literally, it just pulls it all closer. Okay, this, it's okay. Well, I think you've had it in lecture. I will talk about it in the video that I post. Watch this video on YouTube. Just watch it a bunch. Just watch it until you could literally tell me it. Because a lot of the time, one of the questions is, tell me the process. Like, tell me everything from nerve stimulation to the end of contraction. And so she'll go walk you through that all the time. So they're going to talk a lot about ATP and all this stuff. Like here, all you need to know is that, because when it goes up here, I'm going to tell you this in the video, right? But for now, so we use that ATP, right? Because this is myosin. Are we feeling that this is myosin and this is actin? Okay, now we know if we didn't know, myosin and actin, okay? That's that little globular head, and it's called the power stroke when it uses ATP to come up and grab onto actin, and then it will pull. And that's how we shorten the Z line, because they all reach up and grab and pull. And then they all just shorten, and we shorten the thing. Does that make sense? One little globular head at a time, okay? And then we're going to learn a lot about calcium, which you don't want to know. But let's just watch it do this for a second. Okay, so it's like telling you things that we haven't talked about yet. Blah, 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 calcium. Okay. And then it does this power stroke thing and it pulls. And it pulls. And then it shortens because of its pulling. And then it ends up shortening the whole muscle. You're not going to show me. Right? It shortens the whole muscle. Can this go away? Right? Which is how you like literally shorten this, right? Because we're pulling all those things together. Okay. How do we feel about some of this? Everyone's like, I'm tired. Good. Okay, hold on. You feel good?
Yeah.
I know that that's a lot. If you genuinely can tell me what the fibers are and where they are and what's going on, you're way ahead of the game. That video is stellar. There's a bunch of really good videos on there, and I would watch all the muscle ones just because it's really confusing, and they're going to ask you pretty specific questions about this. This is like one of the most specific things they get into, and it's really hard because there's a lot of physiology. It's like, why does it happen, right? Which is a lot of like calcitonin and parathyroid hormone. It's like, why does it happen? What does it do? So that is the end of the session. Please let me know if you have any questions. If anyone didn't send me their UIN, please do that. Thank you, Daniel. I don't even know if he's still here, but I have it. Anyone else? Anything else? How are we feeling? We good?
Is the test prep gonna be like 2 hours like usual? Okay.
Yeah, it might even, honestly, it might even go longer if we want it and need it to. I'm here to help you guys. So, you know what I'm saying? If y'all want to stick it out, we can stick it out and do that.
Yeah. Is this the hardest test compared to the other ones?
Yes. Okay. This is the hardest test. After this, the final is pretty much like it's 10%, no, I think it's like 60% cumulative and then 40% new material, which is like your nervous system. And that's pretty much all just like, it's all classification because it's like central nervous system, brain, spinal cord, peripheral nervous system, like autonomic. It's just a lot of like tree branching stuff. So this is your hardest test.
It'll be easy.
It's really, yeah, honestly, if you watch the videos online, no, I'm serious. I know you think I'm being crazy. If you watch those videos until you literally can recite it with her, you are going to do fine. And she's really annoying, but it's so worth it. So
Okay.
thanks, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm heading back up.
Oh.
No, if you've already consented, then I don't care. I'm gonna, hello. No, Christian, you don't have to give me permission each time, just the newbies, just because I already know. Unless you change your mind for whatever reason, unless you suddenly don't feel like you should be on YouTube for your fans, then yeah, you should definitely let me know. Or if you need to put like trademark by your face or something. And people are like, I don't understand how to get in it, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't understand? It's in the message.
Or you can go to your website and the link's on there.
What's funny, Christian? Nothing. Why are you laughing at me? He's like
Nothing.
smirking the whole
Nothing.
time, and I'm like,
Nothing.
I didn't even make a bad joke. You can't laugh at me.
You'll see.
I'm very sorry. Go away. Go away. Okay. Okay. Heather, I saw on TikTok today that this girl made a TikTok and she has 11 sisters and 3 brothers.
Did you think of me?
Yes. And I was like, y'all are some warriors, man. I can't do like 2 people in my house, and I hate them. I hate them.
Oh no, I can't do it. I stay in my room.
Okay. I saw that and I was like, if I had 14 siblings. Anyway, I thought that was fun. Christian, nothing is funny. You're like smirking.
It's just my face. This is just my face.
Okay, fine.